Ethel Stanley are in the room. Can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Hello, 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 hello. So we must not be on just yet. Can anybody out there hear us? And we've done this before when nobody could hear us, so I don't want to do it again.
So you're gonna have to turn it down.
We must not be on just yet.
Honey?
Can anybody out there hear us? And we've done this before when nobody could hear us, so I don't want to do it again.
Are you gonna say something? We are live.
You could. They can hear you. So you say something, honey. How you gonna say? See, this is the bickering that goes on behind the scenes, honey. You're gonna say something.
It ain't even no bickering. She said she's blowing it all out of proportion. Get your life.
So hello, everybody. Welcome to this version of Let's Talk. It is September 16th, 2020. Woo. You got Lisa and Rasheida. We're actually in the same room. We're across the room from one another, from each other at the moment. And I've got a speaker volume on the other thing, so I'm going to turn that down a little bit. We invite you, go to our website, Facebook page. If you would like to be in the room to be a part of the live conversation, come on in the room. Don't be afraid to come on in the room. Jump on camera, join us through Zoom so that we can see who we're talking to. We can see that there are about 3, 4, 5, well, just dropping. So maybe we're going to share it out a little bit more and give people a minute or some time to get on here. We got a really interesting topic we wanted to cover this evening. If you guys were in with us last week, we went over a lot of stuff. Well, we try to go over a lot of stuff all the time. We really want to go over the things that are on your minds and the things that have happened in the news that are on our minds the last few weeks or so, or I should say 7 days. It seems like a lot is happening in the 7 days between these shows. What's your, I mean, golly.
A lot is not the word. I feel like, I don't know if anybody else is feeling. I feel like everything's kind of speeding up. I don't know, it's because maybe it's the buzz of, are you really eating off my plate? Y'all saw that, right? You seen her eating off my plate.
That's spousal love.
You lucky, I love you. Anyways, but I feel like the energy, the buzz is, I think, getting closer to the election and trying to, I know for me, that's just how I've been feeling. And I've talked to a couple other people, they're like, yeah, people are doing the countdown to the election. And then when the election is here and how it's going to be handled and all of the everything around it and how our world, we're on the edge trying to figure out, okay, we got another 4 years of
craziness.
Crazy, or will we finally find, hopefully, will we have more, I don't know, will we have 4 more years? I don't think we have 4 more years of Biden's president of craziness, but he's going to take.
Biden's?
I said Biden.
You did. You said of Biden's. Okay, go ahead. 4 more years of Biden's. I
need you not to be trying to correct me.
No, I was asking a question. Oh, well, I make you have hot flashes. Ain't got nothing to do with me correcting you.
Anyway.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
No, but it's going to take some time to undo Donald Trump's mess.
Got you.
So when Biden gets in office, I don't want people to act like they were acting when Obama got in the office. He got a shitload of stuff dumped in his lap in the very beginning of his administration. So this is not going to be an easy task. And I need folks not to think that, we're going to get it done real fast, real quick. I mean, that's just my point. That's how I feel. I feel like things are speeding up. I think the energy, the buzz of what the change is going to come in November, and whether or not it's going to be for us or against us, we praying to God. All y'all praying, folks.
Yeah,
pray. We really need to pray, and then you need to vote. Please be registered, and if you can,
early voting has started.
Yes.
So please check your state schedule. I wish I had it in front of me. I don't. Our little research assistant actually is running around here. And if he comes back with an earshot, I'll have him run some quick numbers real quick, or run a list down really fast about the early voting has already started. So if you can at all vote early, please get out and vote. This is an appeal to African Americans in particular, so this is not against anybody else. But here's what I'm going to say. African American community, you are obligated to vote. Don't get into this mindset of if we have the electoral college, we have this, we have that, and therefore, and I make no real impact. You have to vote. If for no other reason, understand that somebody that shares the DNA that you have in your body died without the opportunity to vote. A lot of sacrifice was made. And if you sometimes we can't do things for ourselves. We run a race further and faster for other people, then run this race further and faster for your ancestors who didn't have the opportunities that you have. If you can't find any other reason to vote, please just consider that one. The other thing I want to say real quick on the voting thing is, please consider this, people. In relationships, we all subscribe and kind of, I like the Tyler Perry movie, Jill Scott says 80-20 rule, right? She reminds her husband that he traded her in, what is the name of that? Mary, Why Did I Get Married? That he traded her in for 20% hottie. Jill Scott plays the wife. And, that's pretty much all we can expect out of any relationship, whether that's marriage, friendship, or what have you, the 80-20 rule. I'm going to say if you have more than an 80% expectation out of your politician, something's wrong. The 80-20 rule kind of universally fits across everything. Rasheida sitting over there chowing down. She just came in a little while ago, so we give her some grace, and she certainly can eat on the air. Hey, some of you guys. And so don't go out and be a single issue voter, right? Don't be a single issue voter. Evangelical folks tend to be aligned with Donald Trump right now because he is pro-life. And so, what in the heck does that mean? I mean, I get that you want to protect children and babies, but here's the problem when you are a single voter issue. Who are you to decide at what point is pro-life? If I said that shooting the young man up, killing Breonna Taylor or shooting Jacob Blake that's against pro-life. I mean, the point of being pro-life is that you're actively for life. It shouldn't be a qualifier of age, and nor should you or I have the audacity or even the ability or the nerve to determine at what age one life is more valuable than another life. All life is valuable, so don't pick one single issue saying, well, this is pro-life, so I'm going to vote for this person or not vote for this person, when the fact of the matter is 80-20 is the best you're going to get. Here's what I encourage you to do. Look at both sides of those tickets and see where the majority of what you believe goes with which candidate. Forget the party, the color, the blue or the red that the candidate wears. You need to pick somebody who was good for the soul, good for the country, because the Bible is very clear about you selling out for riches and silver and gold and losing your soul in the process. So don't become a single voter, a single issue voter. This pie is bigger than you. Stop being self-centered and conceited that you think it's only supposed to stop at your feet. We don't get to make those decisions. We're supposed to be looking out for our brethren. And when you are choosing your president based on a single issue, and that person may represent things that annihilate or disgrace or, it hurts the majority of the country, then how much of a Christian are you for real? I mean, when it comes down to it. So I'm just saying, don't get tied up in a single thing. Look at the whole playing field, because I got news for both sides of the ticket. They're both corrupt as hell. There is no great side of this ticket. We are typically left with the lesser of the evils. But you still need to be looking out for people in your community. There's no point in you doing well and everybody around you struggling. So I'm just saying, get out of your way. Don't be self-centered. Think about the person next door. Because whether you want to think about it on the conscience end of it or not, at some point it catches back up. If we don't think about our neighbors and our neighbors have to get some kind of assistance, does that not impact our taxes? Of course it does. Yes, it does. So that's pay me now, pay me later. Right. We don't actually get away with it. Don't fool yourself. My my father-in-law says, don't romanticize. That's a Troy Warner thing. Don't romanticize the situation.
Come on
It's
now.
typically black and white. You're trying to make it gray one is unnecessary. You know when people are good people, whether they wear blue or wear red, pick the best person so that the country can get on track.
Well said.
That's my 2 cents on the voting thing. But since you brought that up, but you're right. Probably some of the anxiety right now is around voting. So be sure you, Rasheida keeps reminding me to look at the camera because I'm talking to her. And to center I like sitting over to the side. I like being cockeyed.
You look crazy.
Anyway, just be responsible. Make sure you have everybody that you love and know who's eligible to vote is out getting the word out and being heard. Okay, so that's
Okay.
but I do agree. I think that there's a lot of anxiety right now because we're getting closer. So it's cool. A quick reminder, make sure you follow us and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe to Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn. We have a couple of events coming up, which is great. You know, before COVID kicked in, we were scheduled to be speakers at a couple of gay pride events in particular. And I was contacted recently by an organization out of Florida, and they're going to be doing 2 events. And so we will, one or the both of us will be speaking there. And that whole thing, which was really interesting when they called us, because they're looking for somebody who's African-American and who's trying to navigate the current climate in the country, but who's also a Christian.
That's
How
we're
navigating that. So
well-rounded individual.
Yeah, and this happens to be a corporate conference that this will be at. So, you know, and I in particular in this equation have the corporate experience, the executive experience. I'm not looking at the camera right now, I'm looking at you. Christianity,
I'm trying to help
as
you.
well as the theological experience and background, as well as being lesbian, gay, obviously. So they're looking for perspective for conversation in those areas.
Basically, they've been looking for you.
Sounds like it. So anyway, we will post those dates. I'm not sure if that's going to be a closed conference. It's going to be made available. Stop looking at Rasheida. I like looking at Rasheida. So,
hey, Serena. Hey,
so again, one of the topics that we introduced last week, well, one more shout out for vendors. If you know any small vendors, we're going to get back to our next month, which is October. We're going to get back to our small vendor highlights. We want to be sure that small vendors have the opportunity, particularly as we start to approach the holiday season. You know, to make sure that we know where to find small vendors, what they have available, etc. If you are a small vendor and you're interested in being a part of our favorite things page, where we are shooting out advertisements every week to people who follow our show, contact us at lisaandrashida@gmail.com so we can outline the guidelines for you to be a part of that project. We're happy to make sure that we promote small vendors, particularly those businesses who are in our own communities. It's important to buy from your community. Your community cannot grow if you are buying 20 to 40 miles away from your house. If you have options near you, buy from those people so that your community can grow. All right, so that is
her whole spiel, baby.
There's my whole spiel for tonight.
You gave it up, darling.
Yeah, so we picked a topic this week and we sent it out. So I'm hoping that you guys were able to, again, I want to say, if you are bold enough, come on in the Zoom room. Go to our Facebook page. You can go to my personal page, Rashida's personal page, and there is a link for the Zoom room. Or go to Lisa and Rasheida. And there's a link for the Zoom room. Dial on in, come on in the room so that we can see you on camera while we have this conversation. But wow, what we were talking about last week, and we really need you guys to be in the room for this, is we were talking about this idea of eugenics. Eugenics. So do you want to go for it?
All right, so she done talked enough, I guess it's my
turn. You always tell me I talk too much, see?
No, I don't think you talk too much. I think sometimes you just get on a roll and don't realize you just keep rolling, and keep this party rolling.
Dory.
Oh Lord, what in the fuck?
Gotta have some fun when we do this stuff. Okay,
see, this is why I don't take her nowhere. All right, so basically, we were talking about it, and you know what? I had to do some research. I thought I knew what it meant, and I had kind of a gist of what it meant, but it's a lot to process. And I looked up what the word itself means. And it's a Greek word, it's a hybrid Greek word. It means well born. And there are about three really main philosophers that really started with eugenics. Eugenics was supposed to be, it was the study, Charles Davenport, 1902, Francis Galton, and then of course Charles Darwin. Everybody heard of Darwinism and the evolution theory. He had a lot. He was the origin of species. That was the name of his book that he wrote, and it's actually like, or they call it now, survival of the fittest. And he did a lot of development, and he created. Eugenics was trying to create a single race, a perfect race. Or hold on, there was a statement somebody wrote. If they were saying, if you prevent the smart people and the low people, the high talent people and the low talent people, they were saying smart and the dumb, from mating with each other, it will keep the gene pool, keep their heredity pure.
Yeah, that's kind of like slavery, breed slaves.
Yep, and he was Francis Galton was very numbers driven, so he did a lot of research on the perfect specimen, the perfect shaped face, the perfect shaped body, and the legs and the arms. So he did a whole lot of calculating with a lot of numbers, and then he created what they thought was like eugenics. And so they tried to find the perfect. There was they had in the 1950s and 60s, there was this advertisement. I saw this on YouTube, and of course YouTube has everything. And there was an actual advertisement of a woman holding her baby boy. And in the advertisement, it said, "Please help me keep my baby pure." Wow. I was like, what? So anyone that had a big nose or too long arms if you were out of the normal average range of a human, you were considered a defect. They looked at as people. They said people with certain disabilities they really made sure that of course, as eugenics, they made sure that they didn't have kids, so they didn't mate. And there was this one story of this young lady, and it was in the 50s and 60s, and she said her they were, I believe they were in North Carolina. And she said that she was 13 years old. Well, first of all, there wasn't a lot of jobs back then, so they were taking all the sharecropping and stuff, but they were still getting paid. They still doing a lot of work, but that was the only work that they had. And she said after a while, her mom and parents, they divorced because of the stress. And so she went to go live with her grandmother. And over time, she said their grandmother was on the system. So when they went to go to social services, she would go get her food stamps, and you do a check-in. You know how old school, you go there, you take all your kids, they ask you all these questions. And she noticed that the little girl's hair wasn't kept, that her clothes was rattered and tattered. And then so they were documenting all these little things about her. And then one day they came for one of the evaluations, and the little girl, she was 13. And at that time, the social worker noticed that she was pregnant. So she wrote in her notes, sexually promiscuous child, and all these horrible things. And they after evaluating from the social workers, I mean, their evaluation was so wrong. What had happened was the young girl was molested. She was pregnant by the person who did it to her. She couldn't tell nobody. She was just lost. And so after all the social worker do all of this documenting, back then they had a eugenics board. It was made up of 5 white men. And the social workers would talk to them and give them what they saw. And so they said, well, this young lady, she's promiscuous. She doesn't get along. It's in documentation. She doesn't get along well with others. She's out of control emotionally.
This is in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is all the documentation. And I was just sitting there reading this going, what? And it's an actual interview of the person. And she's telling you her version. And then it was just in my mind. And she said she went to have to deliver the baby. And that's when they sterilized her. When they cut her open to have a baby, a C-section, they also took out her insides because all of the documentation that the social worker said about her and why she was and what she was pregnant. And she said it was just, and she said, they didn't even tell me. She said, I woke up, my stomach full of bandage and I'm holding my baby. But nobody told me that they took out my ovaries. They were trying to make sure that no one in her gene pool would ever would procreate. And I just sat there and going, but nobody, I mean, they didn't get permission. They just was just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? I don't get it. I am just over the moon and just, I'm angry, I'm sad. So many people who didn't even know it was being done to them.
Correct.
They had no clue.
Yeah.
And the parents were, it was in the 50s and 60s.
Well, actually, it wasn't just in the 50s and 60s, particularly in North Carolina. So here's...
Well, I was talking about in that time.
Right. Well, here's some data I want to share with you. And this is one of the reasons we brought it up. And I'm going to talk to you about why I kind of brought this topic back up again, because it's something, as we in the African-American community or communities of colors start looking at this whole COVID thing, we have this history of the Tuskegee experiment performed on us. So when you ask someone who's African-American or of a minority community, what do you think about a COVID, today's ailment or, today's vaccine and stuff? Our first response generally is going to be, because we have this historical precedent of time and time again and I brought up eugenics because, we all can point to Tuskegee, but here's the reality. The eugenics case in North Carolina was just settled.
Wow.
Right. That they just settled that and I think it was like $12-13 million. So you guys can go in and check it out and check out the data on that. But they're still fighting over eugenics in North Carolina and all of the run that was done. So let me give you an example of what happened. There were approximately 33 states that allowed involuntary sterilization, which was basically eugenics. And like Rasheida said, it was a board of people. And I had said I was going to find out. I do know that it was Procter and Gamble and a couple of these companies which are really big corporations that we support right now. Their founders were part of that original board that came up with this whole idea of eugenics and deciding who was worthy of procreation and who they wanted to stomp out, who they didn't think was intelligent enough, and how it was not much different than what was happening with Hitler and trying to design the perfect human beings. And so, that happened right here, but it mostly happened in communities of people of color. And so there were approximately, let me give you North Carolina's data in particular, between 1928 and 1986, they performed a eugenics involuntarily on 8,000 people, more than 8,000 people. And that information you gave out was accurate. And two, they would pretty much grab young Black women off the street, decide that they didn't like her lineage or they didn't like her family, grab them off the street, and then sterilize them and then drop them back off. And they don't know what has happened. And the families don't have any way to systematically fight this kind of thing. And that's also tied back to, we'll talk about this on another show, but it's also tied back to when the Democratic Party was, actually at that time, the Republican Party, when this stuff was going on, Republican Party was made up mostly of African Americans, and how that got switched around. That switch from Republican for African Americans to Democrat also happened in North Carolina, but that's another show. So we'll go back and bookmark that piece.
You better get some knowledge.
And yeah, it was basically, this whole project was about to control the population and to keep undesirables, they would say, undesirables and people of color from populating. And so again, to give you some data, I did North Carolina between 1928 and 1986, 8,000 people. 85% of those people were female. In 1907, And this is mostly happening to Asian people as well as African American.
Wow.
But in California, between 1907 and 1979, 60,000 people were sterilized without permission. Woo. In Indiana, close to home, 1907 to 1974, 2,500 people were sterilized. In Washington, between 1921 and 1983, I want y'all to hear this. This is 1983, 1986. We were in high school for some of us. Some of us, you were just born.
I wasn't born in the 80s, thank
so between
you.
1921 and 1983 in Washington, 5,000 people. In
Wow.
Connecticut, between 1926 and 1963, 557 people. In Illinois, remarkably, in the state of Illinois, they only document one case of eugenics. And in New York, between 1912 and 1920, they only document 42 cases of eugenics. But you know, too, that we are very good about the documentation not being there so that nobody can come back and hold us accountable.
Right.
Why do we bring this up? Again, it's because you think over all this time that this kind of practice would be not valid. We wouldn't be having these kind of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have them again so that we people of color and folks who are not of color, when we say we're not standing in line for a vaccine, this is why. This has never worked out in our favor.
I'm good.
We have always been the guinea pigs or the petri dish, the test tube kids. We're never the recipients of good outcome.
Now that I know that I have a choice, my mama said, when you know better, you do better.
You know, so you know, this is why we bring up topics like this, because we need to be aware of what has happened.
Absolutely.
You always need to know history. You don't need to get stuck in history, but you need to know history, because here's the one truism in life: history repeats itself. Anything that was fashionable 20 years ago was fashionable 20 years before that, and was fashionable 20 years before that. It is not a mystery that we are in a time right now where we're repeating the cycle of hatred. Here we are, we're talking about using 1960s Bull Connor's tactics, using a lot of racial rhetoric. This is not any different. This is not something that's new. It's changed formats because of social media, but the impetus and the outcome being sought is exactly the same. None of this is really, and let me tell y'all something, I know y'all gonna be shocked by this, none of this is really about color. This is about, well, I didn't say color. It's not about skin color. This is about money. There has to be a segment of rich and poor. This is about money. This is not about, listen, I'm gonna say it like this, you know, and I've already shared my political, I'm not politically aligned with either party. I don't think I'm gonna say Donald Trump is not a racist. He doesn't give a shit about black people or white people. What he cares about is poor people and rich people. He doesn't care if you're white and you're poor. He got no use for white poor, like he got no use for black and rich. I mean, it's about money, and it's about narcissism as well. Oh my
goodness.
Because here's the reality again. What he does is, even if you're, so let me put it in order for you. It's about money first for him, and then it's about race second for him. I won't say, yeah, second. And so here's what happens. Even when you have money, but it comes down to him, he's going to choose himself. Case in point, everybody ever been appointed by the administration, when they turned on him, even when you got take Bob Woodward,
oh my God,
and say, here's the evidence, he throws you under the bus. So even if you're his friend, if it comes down to his own survival, you no longer count, you're expendable. So don't get it twisted. You know, this country this is about money. And if there's money to be made from this vaccine, if there's money to be made, it's gonna come to pass real quick. It'll come to fruition really fast. If there's no money in it, then it ain't coming to the surface because they don't care. But I just, you know, we need to just be aware of all of this stuff. I would love to, I see there are a lot of people scrolling through, and we've got
a quick shout out.
Okay, quick shout out.
I'm doing quick shout outs to, okay, my My boy Michael Booth, Pat Colquitt, Serena Brown, Angela Wright, Ella Reese Radcliffe, Ayanna Bradley. What's going on my people? Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, there's my girl Twinkie. I ain't seen Twinkie since high school. Hey, Twinkie. Some of my, I won't say kids, I was going to say my kids from RIT, they are now grown adults.
Yes, they
I
are.
feel like a proud grandparent and certainly a proud parent.
Come on now.
Seguedo Rodriguez is on there, and Curtis Shea for Donna Thompson, which is my cousin. Patrice Mack, thank you for joining us. Kathy Hodgkins, Jackie, my boy Lump. I go all the way back to grade school with Lumpy.
Yeah, baby.
And my cousin Dorothy Robinson, thank you guys for joining us on this call. We would love to have some of you, Ethel Stanley and Moesha. We'd love to have you, some of you guys come on in the Zoom room and have some of this live conversation so that we can get your feedback. If you have some of the stuff you want to add, feel free to go ahead and type it in, and we'll be happy to read it out to viewers, because the whole point of these weekly meetings is to give us as a community the opportunity to talk about what we're facing, the new issues, the issues that are on our minds, the historical issues we need to keep in perspective as we try to move forward as a community, etc. So it's really a blessing to us to have different perspectives, because we can always grow. If you're in a room with a bunch of people who agree with you, you're not growing, and neither are they.
You need to find another room.
You know, and you definitely don't want to be the smartest person in the room all the time, because there's no growth, there's no imagination, it can't stretch you at all. So feel free, please come on in the room, take part in this conversation. But again, you know, we kind of fell into the whole eugenics conversation, piggybacking off.
Say, how did we even really get into this? How did this segue? We had a conversation that last week that
segued
into this, and then we decided to do this. I can't remember what was the segue.
I think it had to do a little bit with voting suppression and trying to control masses.
Okay.
And understanding who the players were. And again, my thing has always been, you know, we want to forgive, yeah, but you have to know that, let me look back at the camera. You have to know that some of these folks are responsible, some of these big corporations today, they were built on the backs of things like eugenics. Yeah, and you can't hold all your ancestors hostage about stuff that the predecessors decided. But again, you still got to know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with, so you know how to deal with them.
Well, I think one of the many blessings is that we have ancestors who died for us, but then at the same time we've evolved as a race and as people. And I think the blessing is the fact that we still really take time. I think right now, taking this time to just have this discussion. We're now dialoguing. I think we've always, as a people, have dialogued, but I think there's a saying that they say on 106.3, it says you have to organize, strategize. Oh crap. Organize,
mobilize?
Yeah, it was one more before mobilize. Yes, it was like organize, strategize. I'm gonna get it, but I get it back to you. But it was very empowering. And every time I hear it, it made me go, yes, because I think as a people, we've had some of the pieces. It's like 5 major elements and to solve this. And then we've had 1 or 2, and then we had 3, but we've never had all 5 successfully. And I think a lot of other people have, and they, like a lot of other races have come together. Like I understand, like the the Vietnamese. When I have Vietnamese and half American god brothers, and when they all came over here, they all lived in like a 2-bedroom apartment, but they all worked and they all, saved their money and they all paid rent so that they all could have money. What's that called? The everybody's doing this thing now.
Yeah,
what's it called?
So there was this old movie called Joy Luck Club where community share.
Community share, yes.
I think one of the issues for us, I can speak, I think, for African American people. I can't speak for any other, because I've not had as much experience. I think that's difficult for us because what you said that was key is you said when they came over here, right? When they came over here, they came as a community. They came having somebody have their back. They came as a collective.
Okay.
They came with a plan that they were going to work together. We didn't come nowhere. We got dragged in the middle of the night.
Okay, that does make a difference. Yes, it does. Yes, it
And
does.
so
And then on top of that, they separated us intentionally so that we couldn't communicate.
So right. And so again, go back to biblical times. When we were split up in when God said, when Jesus sent people out into different parts of the world, they spoke different languages. Right? So we were dragged over here and separated so that we could not have the community and could not have the collective, which is why, in my opinion, don't know if it's true or not completely, which is why we had the one collective that we could have and that we developed here was church. And so that permeated, that was the one language that no matter what plantation you ended up on, when you heard those old songs, you knew that there was some kindred stuff, there was some commonality, there was some village, some do you feel me, that you can identify. We need to help each other. Okay. And I think that's too why we have such a more difficult time getting away from the church too. And have a difficult time making transitions in other parts of our life, because we tie everything back to that, because that's the thing that we perceive as help us escape and establish ourselves as a people on this soil. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I hope that makes sense. And I could be completely wrong. So I'm open to being challenged on that.
Into conversation.
Or other perspectives on that. But that, so when you say other people work together because they had the opportunity to plan together. Yeah. And they had the opportunity to do what you just said. They had the opportunity to, would you say, strategize? What was the first word? To organize, strategize, and I'm going to say immobilize. We didn't organize, we got snatched. We couldn't strategize. When we strategized, we got beat. Or killed. And we're immobilized. Our immobilization came with movement by Harriet Tubman and the other Underground Railroad. That's what now at that point we were organizing, strategizing, and immobilizing. But before that, we couldn't, because that would get you killed. We had to have certain people have the courage to push against the system to help build us up so that we would have the courage. You live in two places. You live in strength or love, or you live in fear. It depends on where you are on the spectrum. That determines what your behavior is going to be.
Y'all heard that? I can't say it, but I know y'all heard that.
You either make decisions. Again, I'm going to tell what my father-in-law said. Stop romanticizing it. There is no gray area. You are either living life in positive, meaning in love. So you're making your decisions based on your lens focused on love. How am I giving to my fellow man? How am I giving to the universe? How am I letting God be seen in me? What they say, what WWJD people went on that's, you're either living in that house or you're living in the house over here, which means I'm scared of everything. This thing in the middle that connects it, like the two things go in your ear when you were a kid, put on the wall, that in the middle, that's what's confusing. Stop living in the middle. So imagine this is the left side of the street. This is the right side of the street. What's in the middle between the two streets? If this is the left sidewalk and this is the right side of the sidewalk, what's in the middle? The street. If you stand in the middle of the street, what happens? You get smacked down, run over, beat up, dragged. That's what happens in life. Wow, you got to pick one side. You got to pick one curve. You got to pick which side of the curve you're going to be on. But if you make your decisions in fear, you will never become what God called you into being.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Can. Well, a lot of us spend our time there, but shouldn't. So the point of this was to really talk about how this kind of stuff is impacting us today. We, as a collective, we live in fear because of the history of what, thank you, Kiki, the history of what has happened to us. Wow. It's understandable, but we can't stay there. We gotta start going back to the other side of the street. And don't stand in the middle of the street, cross it fast, because the sooner you get to the other side and you trust Here's the big thing. Trust God's word, who says, if you ask me, I'll do it for you. When you jump on the other side of the street and trust that, that's what happens. People say, if you're not a Bible reader or you don't believe in Christianity per se, the universe will give you what you ask for. The Bible says you have not because you ask not. God doesn't say, he says, go do it here, your gifts, go do it. He until you turn around and say, well, how am I going to do it? That's his problem. He didn't ask you to worry about that part. He just told you to go line up and do it. Your gifts will make room for you. So just cross the street and trust that he's going to do what he wants done. And so that's interesting, because I'm going to segue into this, back to this eugenics thing. And you had mentioned voting earlier. There was a gentleman I was having a conversation with who lives, I think he lives in Germany. We were, and he says, to me, today, as a matter of fact, how do you try to reconcile your faith and voting? I mean, that doesn't make sense to him. And I wish I could pull it up on Facebook and show you exactly the way he phrased it.
Wow.
And I was going, huh? And it was actually based on something that your pops put out the other day. And I forwarded that on my Facebook page. And I guess it's because I believe that I have a responsibility as a human being to do my part by voting, to make it better for other human beings. But I, as a Christian, I completely believe that whatever is going to happen is divine. That's God's call. That doesn't mean I still don't take action, because he said, well, isn't it counterintuitive for you to vote if you think that God has the final say anyway? And I said, well, no, I think it's the responsibility for us to vote. He said, what about free will? So that was the banter going back and forth. If you think that God has ordained it, then why would you bother voting?
Right.
That was more or less his question. Because I still think it's my responsibility to show up, absolutely, as a part of the flock, and to show up as a worshiper, and to show up for my neighbor. That in itself, showing up for my neighbor in itself, is an act of Christianity. And so I do think that, but do I think that I, Lisa, have any control over the masses? No, but God does. That's my theological stand. So I don't know if anybody else has any weigh in on that and his question, but I think that's how all of this sort of ties together.
I got it. Now I get it, because I was trying to, when we started this topic and when we decided that this was going to be the topic for the week, I started doing some research and just looking at stuff and going, holy cow. This is serious. And I wanted to share with you, there was a couple of, and these were headlines that were in like papers. And it said the eugenics movement was about having healthy children, having a stronger society. What?
Who determines that?
Right. And this comes from white man. They believe, this was a headline, we believe immigration restriction is essential to prevent deterioration of the pure race.
So wait, where did you get that headline from?
That
what year
was
that?
Like 1908.
So I want you to read it again.
We believe immigration restriction is essential to prevent deterioration of the pure race.
So I'm gonna say it like this. In 2020, 2019, you heard it like this: build that wall. This is why we need to know history. Build that wall was the short word, as we say in the church, cut across the field. Cut across the field. Build that wall was a short version for what you just said. Cut across the field. We're going to control, again, eugenics, we're going to control the population. For those of you who sneak in, we're going to put you in concentration camps, do what we want to you. We're going to build a wall to keep you from coming in and being rapists and murderers. That was also said, right? And then you have people say, well, why do you guys continually live in the past? Why can't you let this go? Because every day you got a fool who gets on TV who repeats stuff. The reason you little, excuse my French, white man don't get it is because nobody ever said that to you. You don't have no ancestors to tell you, like my grandmother told me, her uncle hung from a tree because the white folks across the tracks didn't like him. You didn't have that story. So you don't understand the pain that gets carried when things like this are said in 2020 that reminds us of the things that happened. And when things are the same actions disguised as something new. It's only new because you just now waking up to it. It ain't new to people who've always known their history or who lived around people who made sure that they were informed. So that's why it's hard to get over it. So again, all of this is tied together. This is not an isolated thing. The same events in the same order are happening again. In that same conversation with the gentleman about the voting thing, he was saying, Lisa, didn't slavery end? Why do you stay there? And I said, slavery was outlawed. Did it end? He said, nobody in 2020 has been a slave. I said, well, I disagree. Slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation from a legal perspective of being called slavery. But the moment we were released to walk around with papers or not having papers that said we were free, and then you made it a law, hint, to walk around, that if you are caught without papers, you could be incarcerated and then put back on another kind of plantation. Instead of being free, you were put on a plantation making $1, if $1, an hour, and it was called prison. That's still slavery. It was then, and it is today. Yeah. So no, slavery is not over. It has changed format. It didn't even change formats. It's the same thing. It went from being the free slavery to being the low wage slavery, which it is today. Ain't nothing new. This is why we have to have our history and know it.
Yeah.
But when you don't know, you can't prepare yourself. So,
listen, this has been a very enlightening subject. I will say this. I'm very, very grateful for all the people that take their time out to just listen to us ramble on about our crazy relationship issues and or victories and or blessings, and then no, that's you too. But I thank you so much for listening, and also for all you, please subscribe. Please watch these videos. Take from them what you want from them. Take the tidbits of information and just apply them. And if not, apply them, share them with somebody else that you may or may not know who may be struggling with any of the topics we talk to. Share it with as many people as you possibly can. Because we don't have all the answers, but what we do know, we are willing to just share with the world. And if it helps one person, I'm happy.
Yeah, again, like she said, we don't have all the answers. We do have some opinions. We want to hear your opinions. We want to grow.
Yes.
We want to create a forum in which people can grow, can question, and learn, what have you. So everybody's welcome to take part in the conversation. And I think in terms of the topic itself, I'm done with that for today. I don't know. We got anything new that's coming up we need to let people know about?
No, you actually said next month we're going to start doing the business highlighting. I know that, and it is now fall season, which is my favorite, one of my favorite times. No, my favorite is Christmas. Y'all gonna see it again. I'm gonna be all decked out in my Christmas.
So you missed last year's Christmas flowers.
Oh my Jesus.
And I want you guys to know that. And so Rasheida brought this up, and I'm just going to bust her chops now.
Oh, crap.
Since you mentioned Christmas. So my wife does a marvelously beautiful job every year of transforming our home. all of the African artwork comes down, and she puts up all festive, red, greens, and Christmassy stuff all over the place. She wraps all of the artwork that doesn't actually come down, and so it looks like presents and all that kind of stuff on the wall. But if you notice behind her head,
Oh my God.
there are two. There are two.
You can't say nothing now. You can't say nothing now. What they say.
You may notice that there are two spaces that
Nothing.
appear like there should be something additional there. I'm just saying. And so last year when she took down our artwork, we've not found it yet.
And that was authentic African cloth from Africa. What I normally do is, take my stuff down and I take the stuff out of the box and then I put the stuff.
I don't know what you just said, what word that was, but
I don't know. I don't know where.
So,
yeah.
So it would be a cool show to watch, to set up a camera and let people watch you transform everything.
That takes time. You're gonna splice it all together or something? Because I do that over at least about 3-4 days, maybe a week.
Every day I gotta pull stuff out of storage and.
You like it? You love it?
No, I just try not to get divorced over wrapping paper intensive.
Wow.
That's.
I didn't know that you felt that way.
Yeah, yes, you did.
Now I know.
It's not new. Hey, Paula Logan, Michelle Peterson, and our baby boy, Mr. Jonathan.
Joe Nathan!
Our youngest son has logged on, so it's good to see you guys. We are just about out of time and wrapping up right now. We're trying to get, I don't know what topics Rasheida was going to cover next week. We didn't pick a topic yet, but stay tuned because we will be publishing it. Here's one more thing I want to shout out to you and let you know. We were recently contacted, and so we hope to have a really big announcement coming out about a podcast that we will be part of, a podcast project that we'll be part of. So we're really excited because this is the third or fourth time an external publication and or radio station or television station production kind of place has reached out to us and said, hey, you guys are crazy, but you got some things of substance to say. So
we're crazy.
We'd like to work with you. So stay tuned, keep us in prayer. Thank you for following us. I think we hit 7,000, 8,000 subscribers this week.
7,000.
Yeah, so thank you again for that. We appreciate you following along and supporting our journey. We hope to, again, be delivering content that is worth your salt. So,
please,
again, bookmark us. Put us in your calendar. Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Central. Let's talk with Lisa and Rasheida. We will always put the topics out. Well, that's pretty new. That's a new thing.
Well, I'm gonna say not always.
She's trying to play me.
We try.
we put the topics out in advance so that you can prepare to be part of the conversation and come on in the Zoom room. And don't forget when you book us in your calendar to put the Zoom link in there so that it's the same Zoom link every week.
Same one.
So feel free to come on in the Zoom room so we can see you on camera and have this conversation. We appreciate you. I'm going to say
peace.
Peace.
Good night,
Good
y'all.
night.
Have a great week.